So now I would like to welcome, last but not least, Aurelia Littlepage. Aurelia is a recent graduate of Hunter College with a degree in art history and computer science. She currently works at the Hunter College Art Library and is pursuing a master's in library science. Let's welcome Aurelia.
My name is Aurelia, and I've been so honored to be a KODA Fellow this summer. I just graduated from Hunter, and it's kind of like a weird transition period where you have no idea what you're doing with your life. But I work at the art library at Hunter. I've worked there for all of my college experience. And at first I was like, oh, this is just a job to get a job on campus. But I really fell in love with being in a library, especially an art library where we have special collections and archives. And when I was going into this KODA experience, I was kind of thinking about my future in arts administration and in librarianship. And I was kind of just thinking about what do I want my future to look like? And also what are the communities I want to be in? And what is the impact I want to make? And I just want to say before I really get started that this KODA Fellowship has been an amazing experience, especially working with Klaudia and Cynthia and just getting their expertise in a time where I'm trying to figure everything out. It's been really helpful. And I think when I was going into this project, one of the things that I was thinking about was archives, because we went on a bunch of field trips, specifically to visual aids, ISLA, and MoMA here. And I think that my favorite part of these field trips was getting to see the archives and getting to see how different organizations organize their archives, how they use their archives, and how they're working on maintaining them. And I think especially after visiting visual aids and meeting Jax, who is their community archivist there, I was okay, that's what I want to be. That sounds like the perfect job description for me. And so I was really thinking about that experience when I was going into this project. So my project is basically centered around how do archives function, what even is an archive, and how do we kind of use them, and then also how archives can be a tool for resistance. I think for me, we're in such a weird time right now, especially working at a public institution like CUNY. I've really seen how cultural institutions and educational institutions are under attack by the federal government. I've personally experienced the repercussions of budget cuts and what that kind of does to institutions who are trying the best with what they have to maintain an archive and maintain the community and cultural history. And so after going on all of these field trips, I was really attracted to the artist Rowan Renee, and it's because of their work with archives, and talking to them kind of really opened up my mind about what an archive can be and how it can be used. So I'll just do a little intermission about my interview. These are all images from Rowan's studio. I had the pleasure of visiting their studio in Brooklyn. They were super welcoming to me. I was so nervous, and they made me feel super comfortable and showed me around their studio. They primarily work with installations and also photography. So their practice on, not their side practice, but their practice that supports them is these tin type photography, portraits. She does they do a lot of commissions with that. And then their other practice is more installation based. And so for this interview, I kind of talk about it in my zine, but I really wanted to pick their brain about how they use archives in their work, and then also a little bit more about them, because their personal history is like really ingrained into their work. So I want to talk a little bit about my zine. My zine is called This Zine is an Archive. And when I was making this zine, I really wanted to like include my process in making it into the zine. So the zine is like completely made out of like my notebook. Like I wrote everything down in my notebook before I added it into the zine. And then I also like included excerpts from like my planning for like the interview process and then my planning for the zine itself. So the first page is like an excerpt from my notebook where I was writing down some of my interview questions. And some of the questions that I was kind of asking is like, who are your influences? Like, why did you decide to work with archives and documents? Like, what is your process for putting these documents and your photographs into an installation format? But then also maybe more broad questions like, what does it mean to be remembered for you? And how are we memorialized? And like, how do you document your own practice? So I started out the zine with kind of just like defining what an archive is. And in my opinion, an archive is a collection of records, but records is a very like broad term. Like records can mean anything from like photographs, reports, letters, art, audio recordings, oral history, videos and recordings, books, and like any other material. And I kind of realized through this process like how unconventional an archive can be. And then also like, what is an archive used for? Archives are used to like control narratives, to track information, to be used for educational purposes, but then they can also be a lot more like personal about your day-to-day. Like I said in the zine, like your notes app is just as much an archive as the Library of Congress. And so I wanted to like kind of explore through Rowan's work, like how archives are used, transformed, but also how they maintain their own personal archives and create new ones. So that's kind of how this zine is structured. A little bit more about Rowan. They are a queer artist from Florida. They, like I said earlier, they work with photography and site-specific installations, and a lot of their work is like organized around the themes of healing, trauma, power, pleasure, and the different ways in which boundaries are transgressed. And they specifically work with like, especially for their installation pieces, government records. I'll get to that a little bit later, but basically the way that they maintain a personal archive is through their website. Their website like tracks all of their recent projects, a CV. It also has like a shop feature and like different, like a record of all of the like places where they've been mentioned and where they've exhibited. And it's just like a comprehensive, well, not a comprehensive, but like a very, it's like the best living record of their work. They say that they aren't super big on journals and they kind of plan out their projects in their head. And so having like this website where they can document everything in its final form is like a great way of like tracking their artistic evolution and their artistic practice. So this is how Rowan transforms archives. One of the things that they opened up to me about during the interview is about some of their personal family history. For context, Rowan's father was arrested for abusing a young boy, and he is like serving time in prison for it. And I think that for Rowan, it's a really hard subject because they also experienced like abuse in their family at the hands of their father, and that was never really addressed and never really like addressed from a like carceral like position from a justice standpoint. And so I think they use a lot of these like police documents. So yeah, in this work, No Spirit for Me, they kind of transformed through photolithographic processes the like evidence photos and documents from their father's case and turned it into this like installation that, this is a close-up, but the installation at large like kind of mimics a police evidence room, and it kind of like brings the viewer into their experience and recontextualizes these documents in a way that like kind of offers a sense of healing for Rowan, to kind of take control of the narrative and hold their father accountable for the things that like the justice system never could. Not similarly, but also using transforming documents, this is the perimeter path. It's at the Greenwood Cemetery. And this was like a fellowship basically that Rowan did with the Greenwood Cemetery, where they like looked at the records of graves from the mid 1800s to mid 1900s and created a series of narrative biographies about the people buried there that have kind of been disregarded. The project brings attention to the disparities of race and class and memorialization across the cemetery. And in this installation, you can kind of see how Rowan creates an archive of the cemetery itself, like adding these documents of like, because like the cemetery did keep a pretty comprehensive archive of all the people that were buried there and a little bit about their lives. And so kind of like reclaiming this, these people's stories that like have been disregarded, putting them inside the church, and then also combining these memorials with found objects from the cemetery to kind of create a new archive using archival material. Next, I want to talk about how Rowan creates archives. One of the things that they do is a lot of photography, although they've kind of moved away from that as of recently. But this is one of the things that initially attracted me to Rowan's work, because I'm also a queer person, and I think that like growing up, you don't always see a lot of like records and documentation of like people that look like you, act like you, and have the same sexual orientation of you, like in a way where like they're telling their own stories. Obviously there are some examples, but like the prevailing history is kind of like not portrayed queer people in the most positive light, as we all know. And I think that like through Rowan's photography, they originally did like documentary photography through series such as Z 2016, or 2015, sorry, where they took a series of embryo type portraits of all different people on the queer and gender spectrum. And these portraits were kind of taken as Rowan was kind of grappling with their own identity. And like in these portraits, I didn't include any photos of the portraits just for the privacy of the people, but it was a collaboration between the artist and the sitter, and like showing these queer people like how they want to be shown. And similarly in Bodies of Wood, which is a series of self-portraits, Rowan unpacks their relationship with their father and their queer identity, using this camera to transform a traumatizing experience and be able to kind of heal from it. While Rowan refers to Z as reparative acts, they kind of refer to Bodies of Wood as transformative justice. And so I thought it was really important to see more examples of like queer people creating art that represents them how they want to be shown. And then that's kind of a more like classic example of what an archive can be, but there's also like so many unconventional ways that people can create archives, especially in a community sense. And I think that talking to Rowan about a common thread like really illuminated this for me. A common thread was a community weaving and transformative justice studio at Recess in 2022. And basically they hosted these weaving sessions where they asked like community members, particularly community members in Brooklyn that were formerly incarcerated, to bring textiles and material to add to the shared textile of something that evoked something that they just want to reconsider in the transformative justice framework. And they led meditation sessions and also like discussions with community leaders about how to work towards a better future and work towards a different type of carceral system that holds people accountable while also being kind and compassionate. And I kind of realized that like the resulting textile was in a sense an archive of everybody's thoughts and experiences, and then also physically of the materials that they brought to this session. And it really just made me think about how archives can be a space for collective healing and personal healing. So this is my conclusion. I'll read a quote from Rowan. I asked them the question, do you feel like archives and record keeping can be a tool of resistance? And Rowan said, yes, especially when you are keeping a record or a history of people that is threatening to the status quo. There are so many examples of LGBTQ plus archives, and I think also in Black history as well, of archives being kept by individuals because the institutions were hostile to those histories. So I think we're in a moment where all cultural institutions are being defunded by the government who wants to control what the story is. It does seem that record keeping is potentially a political act. And I feel like that quote kind of just sums up what I took away from this experience of making the zine and facilitating this interview. Like, I think that records and archives exist in so many different ways, and they are powerful. Like, these are tools that we use to write our history and to frame how we think about the future. And if these archives aren't representing everyone, then what's the point? Like, history repeats itself. And so I think that now more than ever, like, it's important for personal people and then also smaller organizations like Visual Aid and artists to maintain archives, work with their communities on like giving voice to people that are silenced and providing inspiration for the future. And so, especially when I'm thinking about my own future and the type of librarian and archivist I want to be somebody that includes everyone and doesn't think about what an archive is in such a rigid way and allow space for people to kind of create their own types of archives and their own types of records and include them and value them. And yeah, that's kind of the end of my zine. It's just like the layout of my zine. Yeah, and it'll be up here if anybody wants to take a look at it. But yeah, thank you so much. Thank you. I really appreciate this experience, and like it provided me guidance in a time when I really needed it. So thank you again to all of my fellows and all of the interns and Klaudia and Elif and Cynthia. So thank you guys.
I have a question.
Yes.
So after working with Rowan on your project, have you felt a certain inclination to maybe build on your personal archives?
Yes.
And like adjusting them a little bit? So what do you want to do?
I think that like something I kind of want to do is create a sort of archive with my friends. Like the aspect of community is something that really hit home for me, and like also relates to like a lot of my other fellows' presentations, especially when we're in a time where like it's in New York because of gentrification and other powers, like communities are under attack and communities are shifting rapidly. And so I feel really connected to my Hunter community. And so I think that like with my friends at Hunter, I would love to build a sort of archive of our experiences, whether that's through photographs, whether that's through like asking them to journal or write. And then I also want to build upon my own personal archives. I'm a collector, a hoarder, according to my family, and I will continue to collect and write in my notes app, write in my journal, and interact with artists that are doing the same thing. So, yeah.
I also love your shoes.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
First, I just want to say I also collect a bunch of stuff. It's archiving, it's not hoarding.
Thank you.
But I just wanted to say that your zine, your decision to make it a notebook was like the most genius, mind-blowing. I was just like, wow, that's just top tier brain power right there. So I commend you for literally, yeah, I don't know. I'm at a loss for words. I'm like, that is like the most smartest thing, the most hardest
Thank you, I
decision.
appreciate it.
And like getting to know you, especially like you're very clear cut about like your passion for becoming a librarian, especially within in an archival way. So it's just so cool to like see your handwriting, and this is literally your mark making.
Yeah.
And it's like you're talking to yourself in a way, and literally your personal documentation. So this is as much like your personal archive as it is for Rowan's work and for KODA. So just 2 thumbs up for an amazing zine and a great presentation.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I definitely wanted to include like the act of making it into the zine. I was like, it just feels natural. I was like, what else would I kind of do? So thank you, I really appreciate your words.
This kind of made me realize all of the like personal archives that I have, like the box of like old toys and like postcards that's sitting in my closet, or like the photo booth strips that I collect with all my friends.
No, exactly. Like it kind of just like made me rethink like what an archive is and the ways that like everybody has different forms of archives in their life. And yeah, like I said, like as I'm moving forward in my life and my career, I just want to like broaden my mindset of like what these types of things can be. And yeah, I definitely have a lot of personal archives. My sister knows that. So yeah.
Did Rowan talk at all about the effort that went into working with the archives to open them up and allow these types of exhibitions to take place? Is that a topic?
Yeah, so they said specifically with No Spirit for Me, they worked with a professor that they had at Parsons who worked with like clemency, and they were able to like access those documents through them. It's crazy that they would even have to like jump through hoops to get these documents, considering how deeply personal they were. Like something Rowan also talked about is like in a different work, like kind of like using these crime scene photos and like reconstructing them, because like this is their home, and like viewing them in this sense like was really odd to them. Sorry, I kind of got off track, but then specifically for the perimeter path, because they were at a residency program with the cemetery, that's how they got access to those documents. Yeah.
You
Oh my gosh.
Residency right there. Nobody bothers you.
Yeah.
I was gonna make a comment with like Rowan's piece. A lot of them are very physical, not like digital. And I've been thinking about like archives and like how important it's to have like physical archiving. Like phones are great and digital is great, but electricity will go out, clouds will disappear, things will get stolen. Like having physical like photos of your friends and like how it's very much needed.
No, I agree. Like I think the internet is fickle, like it's not permanent, and I think like having permanent archives are so important. Oh my gosh, there was something else I was gonna say, but it's slipping my mind right now. But I 100% agree. Yeah. But yeah. Oh, I remembered what I was gonna say. I was gonna say that made me think of like one of the other things that attracted me to Rowan's work is that they use a lot of alternative photographic processes, like tintypes, embryotypes, like lithographs, and so kind of like they call like craft as care work, and like the physical transformation of these documents, and kind of using these like alternative practices that were like like the origins of photography allows Rowan to kind of like superimpose images of queer people into the gaps left by history. And I think that there's something very powerful in that. So, yeah. Thank you.
Oh, the bright futures you have ahead of you. So exciting, so inspiring and beautiful. Thank you so much. Speaking about archiving and photographs, we need a photo before
Yes.
so we'll do that. But I wanted to thank you deeply for digging into KODA's archive and then for making this, all this beautiful work and this very meaningful contribution into the archive. To everybody, whoever is interested, KODA Archive is available by request. We'll find a way to also showcase your work as much as we can. And I would like to thank all of you for being here on a Friday morning, which is just incredible. And it means the world to us, to KODA, and to the fellows as well. So thank you very much for your support, and thank you very much for the incredible work that you have done. Thank you, Cynthia, and thank you, MoMA, once again.
Thank you.
Oh, wait, let me take pictures of this.